Hello everyone, hope you're doing alright. In this video I'm going to introduce you to the basic rules of the card game I'm making called Stralings. If anyone has any questions on those, please leave a comment down below after watching this video. So first of all, in Stralings the players are called Dreamers because the whole battle are taking place in dream worlds such as the Light World and the Shadow World. Each deck can contain from 40 cards minimum up to 60 cards maximum, and you have only you can have 4 copies of one card with the same name. So at the start of the game, each player needs to have some kind of resources. In Stralings, these are the light sources and the shadow sources, which introduces to the first type of cards, the war cards. Each player must have at least one world card in his deck and play that card before he even starts shuffling their deck. So let's say you're playing with the Shadow World starter deck. Before you even do any other move, you play one of your Shadow World cards you have in that deck, and this card becomes your main world card. The main world card, even if it's light or shadow, will generate the appropriate sources for the player in order to continue playing. More specifically, the Light World and the Shadow World cards will generate 4 sources of the corresponding world at the start of each turn. They also have effects that can help you with the general world tactics that you have in mind, such as sources regeneration for Light World and baby creature revival for the Shadow World. Any other card or region card will stack and generate one extra source of the corresponding world each turn. For example, a light region world card will add one extra light source to the sources of the player. The same will happen for a second light world card. The Dreamer can swap between the main world and another secondary world if he needs to. Let's say you want to have some light sources and some shadow sources, you definitely can do that. But you can change a main world only at the start of your turn. And of course you cannot change the main world with a region card. At any point, both players can have negative or zero sources during their turn, but they cannot play any cards except regions or worlds. The sources cannot go to negative by paying a bigger cost for a card, but of course, if a player has a negative amount of sources or even zero, they cannot make any extra moves that requires any sources. You generally have to be careful with the negative values in sources. Think carefully the regeneration of the next turn and manage your sources accordingly. So now that we have these things out of the way, after playing the world card, the players shuffle their decks, draw 5 cards, and decide the first and second with the rock, paper, scissors. The winner decides the order. In Stralings there are 4 types of cards, so we've mentioned the world cards, but there's also the creature cards, attachment cards, and the action cards. Every card has a cost to pay in order to be played, and the world that is being referred to. The creature cards also have a form, an attack, and a shape. So let's start from these. There are 4 different forms a creature can have. The first is the baby form. This is the basic form of all creatures and can only be played and not be formed by something else, of course. Next is the Straling form. Stralings can only be formed by babies. Next is the big Straling form, which can be formed by babies or Stralings. And lastly, the Elite for the Light World or Skyg from the Shadow World, and this is the most powerful form and can be formed from all the previous forms that have been mentioned. When changing form, the player pays only the difference of the two cards between the creatures that participate in the process. For example, if you want to change form from a Raux to a 9-holer, you pay 2 light sources for Raux and 2 because 4 minus 2 equals 2, and 2 extra light sources for the form change. Of course, this is the same cost as for paying for the 9-holer by itself, but you gain the extra attack from the Raux's effect. Also, when changing form, any attachments do not get destroyed and stay attached to the next form. We'll talk about them later. So players can play the bigger forms also from their hands, but they must pay for the full cost. Now let's talk about the attack that each creature has. This is the most common element indicator for when two creatures are battling each other. The creature with the bigger attack destroys the one with the less attack. It is possible for a creature to have shield, then it cannot be destroyed by battle and instead its shield gets destroyed. If that's the one with the less attack value, of course. But it can be destroyed directly by other card effects, ignoring its shield. Also, if a creature's attack gets lowered to 0, it gets destroyed. Finally, for the creature cards we have the shape. The shape element indicates whether you can change form from this creature or not. Only creatures with the same shape can change form to one another, and only from the forms described above. For example, you can change form from a baby creature with a circle shape to a Straling creature with circle shape, but not to a Straling creature with rectangles. Let's talk about the next type of cards, which is the attachment cards. The attachment cards are support cards that can be attached only to creatures by paying for their cost. One creature can have multiple attachment cards attached to it. As mentioned above, the attachments don't get destroyed when a creature changes form, and when a creature gets destroyed, so its attachments. That's all there is to it for the attachments. These are simple supporting cards and can do very well sometimes. And the final card type is the one of the action cards. These cards work as quick play cards by paying for their cost. One player can also play action cards at his opponent's turn if he has the appropriate cost reserved. So think of them as in the instants and the sorceries of Magic the Gathering combined. Let's go on with the battle system of the game. There are only 3 zones for players to place their creatures, so there can only be 3 creatures at play for each player. Now these zones can be described as the left zone, the right zone, and the center zone. The creatures can only attack at their respective zone and not at any other zone except if they have a specific effect to do so. There is no tapping and blocking in this game, but a good strategy for blocking an attack is to place a creature with a bigger attack at the same zone of an opponent's attacking creature. This is the only way for players to protect their memories. That said, a creature can decrease the memories of an opponent player by attacking at an empty zone. The creatures cannot attack the same round they are being played. For the end of the turn, players can end their turn at any point, either having sources or negative sources, either attacking or not. The most common is when the player is done with their resource management and resource spending and the battle. Players can also pass their turn without doing anything if they want to. And lastly, the game ends when a dreamer reaches 0 memory or has no cards to draw at the beginning of his drawing phase. Remember, each player starts with 10 memory, so battles can be quick sometimes. And of course, mill decks isn't a thing right now, but they will be at the next expansion I'm working on and haven't announced yet. And that's all for today, friends. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos of Stralings and TCG games in general. I'm also going to upload news about the Battle Spirits TCG, so stay tuned if you want some of that also. That's it from me. Have a nice day and stay safe.